State regime media, which calls itself Fox News, collapsing live on air as Donald Trump surrenders yet again to Iran. Donald Trump posting at 11 p.m. on Saturday night, despite our capability to rain terror and death on Iran, I have decided to give a deal a chance. We have worked out the perimeters of a deal. No longer framework. They're talking about the perimeters of a deal. Okay, so what is state regime media warmongers doing right now? Well,
they got Mark Levin, who talks like that, who goes, I spoke to Netanyahu, who wants us to blow the heck out of him.
That's my Mark Levin impression. I'll show you what Levin said in a moment. Then you have Marco Rubio and Lara Trump. I mean, it's the most embarrassing nation. I've got Donald Trump's daughter-in-law with little Marco talking to each other, and Donald Trump's daughter-in-law was like, we never really wanted regime change. And so this was always about making sure Iran never had a nuclear weapon, right? And even Rubio's like, well, I mean, I guess, we do want the regime to change its behavior. And then as Fox continued to lose control on live TV, they do what state regime media always does. They're like, and now we have to talk about women's basketball and men and women's basketball and start attacking the transgender community because we've got to distract you from all of this stuff as Donald Trump continues to manipulate the market. Oh, and by the way, Donald Trump's social media company, Truth Social and Trump Media, they have now officially rolled out the plan to Wall Street. This is real. That Wall Street can pay $100,000. I forget if it's like a month or a year or how frequently you have to pay the fee to Trump Media. And then you get quicker access to Donald Trump's social media posts. So when he posts like, I'm going to make a deal with the perimeters of a deal, you get early access to it. So you could manipulate the market with Donald Trump while the American people suffer. And state regime media is complicit. By the way, they were complicit in the fraudulent and fabricated prosecution of David Hearn as Janine Pirro went on with Jesse Waters and was like, David Hearn's a criminal and a crook and all of these things. I think Fox is going to be hit potentially with a massive defamation lawsuit from David Hearn a la Dominion. All right, Mark Levin last night. Mark Levin finds out that Donald Trump is surrendering yet again to Iran. And Levin is like, who cares if there's a worldwide depression? That's not going to happen. Let me tell you where you need to hit. You need to hit their homes. You need to hit their banks. You need to hit their government buildings. You need to hit their power plants, Donald. This is what Netanyahu told me, Donald. What are you doing, Donald? Here, let me show you what Mark Levin said. Play this clip.
A power vacuum. That's what's needed. Continue hitting ballistic missile and drone factories to destroy as much of its offensive military capability as possible, helping to protect, for example, the Arab oil infrastructure. And I know they're lobbying the White House. There have been reports on this. They're concerned about a wider war because they're concerned about the oil infrastructure, a worldwide depression, and so forth and so on. It won't happen. It won't happen. But take out all the offensive abilities they have, and I think that's what the president is doing as a matter of fact. Target government buildings. Target the IRGC and regular Army facilities. More on the communication centers. Hit their banks. Hit their financial centers. If we want victory, and we want to get this over with, this is the only way to do it.
And I did another video on this morning. So Netanyahu wouldn't leave D.C. until he was able to make sure that Trump and Hegseth and Rubio and Vance and everybody was going to go along with this catastrophic escalation of the already catastrophic war. So then MBS in Saudi Arabia sent his brother, the defense minister, Khalid bin Salman, to go and basically be there because Trump listens to like the last person who's in the room with him. So MBS sent his brother, then MBS called yesterday and was like, Donald, what the hell are you doing? You can't escalate this war. Iran's going to blow up all the electric grids and all the infrastructure and oil fields in the area. And the Houthis are going to do the same if you strike them. You lost this war. Donald, you lost. This was the message MBS delivered. Donald, you lost the war. Just stop, save face, get the hell out of there. You want to manipulate the markets more? We can help you with that. Want to do a little bit of market manipulation there, Donald? But leave us alone because Iran's going to destroy our oil fields. We already are suffering economically. I mean, Saudi Arabia had a massive economic contraction last quarter. Okay, so then you have Marco Rubio, little Marco. He goes on state regime media with Lara Trump. And Lara Trump's like, so regime change, that was never one of the goals and objectives. Like, okay, like Lara, like, do you think we're all stupid? Like, literally, that's what you said when this started, that you wanted to change the regime. You were going to change the regime. The people of Iran were going to greet two genocidal war criminals, Trump and Netanyahu, as heroes. They were going to be marching in the street. Now you sold. Well, you didn't even try to sell us. But after you went to war, that's what you said was going to happen, and it was the opposite. But even Rubio is uncomfortable. He's like, well, I mean, we want the regime to change its behavior, and you see, one of the things that Iran wants to do is it thinks it should be able to project strength in the region to its neighbors. Okay. You think the United States should be able to go in there, or Israel should be over there and dominate the entire region that's not its region, right? I mean, at least Iran is in the area. Iran's a Shiite nation. I mean, there are big Shiite populations who look to the Ayatollah as their supreme leader and religious leader, like their Pope, in Iraq and in Yemen and in Pakistan, of course, in Iran and elsewhere. Watch what Rubio says. Here, play this clip.
The regime change has never been the goal, though. As you say, it has been denuclearization. Can you have one without the other, though?
I think the regime has to change. You may not have a regime change, but the regime has to change. The Iranian regime traditionally has been expeditionary. In essence, their view is they don't want to just govern Iran. They want to govern the region. They want to export their revolution. That does have to change. And the only way you're going to change that is if you make the price of it too high for them to be able to pay.
The fact that...
And then Lara Trump, like, she also like concocts this fake narrative about like Donald Trump wanting to help Ukraine. It's like, dude, are you following what's happening? Donald Trump has denied Ukraine the Patriot interceptor licenses. Okay. Trump lured Zelensky along. He tapped Zelensky along for all of July, a critical month where Zelensky thought he was going to be getting interceptors, only for Donald Trump to rug pull it and say, I'm not going to give you the interceptors or the license. And Russia now rains down ballistic missiles on Kyiv and Zaporizhia and Lviv and other areas. And Zelensky can't strike it down. They don't have interceptors. That's what you need to stop the ballistics. But Lara Trump's like, Donald Trump says he's going to confront Putin and he's going to tell Putin. What are you talking about? Trump's not confronting Putin. Trump is following, in my opinion, they spoke on July 4th. We know they spoke on July 4th. That's not my opinion. My opinion is what they spoke about, which was the plan. Pretend you're going to give Zelensky interceptors or licenses and then don't give it to him, and then rug pull him at the end. Give us enough time, Donald, to get these ballistics. Make Zelensky think you're going to help, and then that'll help us going into the winter. That's what I think happened. But listen to what Rubio says. Play this clip.
Well, President Trump says he is going to confront Vladimir Putin regarding reports that Russia helped Iran target U.S. bases. How much does that relationship concern you?
With Russia?
Between Russia and Iran.
Look, unfortunately, I think you'll find in the world that there are countries, or at least companies within countries, that work with adversaries of ours. And when we identify it, we raise it. And in some cases, very successfully. Nothing we have wanted to do in the Middle East, none of the actions we've taken, none of our successes have in any way been impeded by anything that any other country in the world did against us. There are things that might be irritants, there are things that might be concerning, but there is nothing any other country is doing that in any way is standing in the way of us achieving the things we want to achieve or the objectives we want.
Just to finish.
I mean, the guy's such a liar. I mean, too. He goes, nothing that Russia and China did helped Iran in the war. Seriously, you don't think they provided material assistance? And by the way, I mean, there's a war involving the world right now. That's not a shocking premise that the allies are going to help the allies. China says, Wang Yi, the foreign minister of China, says, we are allied with Iran politically, socially, economically, militarily. We're strategic partners. They made it pretty clear. I mean, Aragchi visited China. Aragchi visited Russia. I mean, we could see what's happening with our own damn eyes. Oh, and then Rubio needs his new target. Well, not his old target, but we got to bring the potentially forthcoming invasion of Cuba. That's what Rubio wants to talk about. Let's play it.
People can argue that we shouldn't do with it, and I know there are plenty of people in American academia and frankly in American press that sympathize with the Cuban regime and have for a very long time. Part of it is motivated by their anti-Americanism, and part of it is motivated by ideological affinity. There are enough people in key nodes of our society, including professors, but frankly, in the past, we've seen people within our own government that sympathize with the Cuban regime. It's the way they get spies without paying them. But it doesn't mean we can ignore this threat. Put aside for a moment my history, the fact that I'm Cuban American, the fact that I grew up in Miami. This is 90 miles from our shores. A failed state 90 miles from our shores that happens to be aligned with adversaries to the United States is a national security threat to our country.
And so then with Fox just completely losing it as Donald Trump surrenders again, bring in Greg Gutfeld. Greg Gutfeld's like, my advice for the Democrats, stand up for the kids, not the criminals and the perverts. I mean, not the criminal. Y'all are covering up the MAGA Republicans, that is a child sex trafficking ring, okay? Y'all are the cabal, okay? Trump's DOJ is quite literally covering up the Epstein files, covering up for pedos. Like y'all, like the pedo at the highest level, the worst pedo ring, you're covering up. But that's your advice. My advice to all of you is release the Epstein files and stop being pedo protectors. Here, play this clip.
So here's my advice for Dems. You need to bring back shame and reputational cost. If you have an extreme view, stop being a pussy about it. You tell them, you're an idiot, get out. Stand up for kids. Like what about the children? You let them go. Stand up for families, actual families, not, interesting families. Citizens, not criminals and perverts. You need, as a party, to shift emphasis away from the lawless to the law-abiding. Stop.
Then, they've got to distract. Okay, I know I'm on TV, says Mark Levin, so I got to watch my language. He's a lowlife, this guy. Hassan Piker, he's a puker. You're a puker, Piker. So what are you talking about? How detached are all of you from this? And by the way, when other corporate news buys into this, like Hassan Piker, Fox, and right wing going after this, it's like, the American people, no offense, Hassan, the American people aren't like, I wonder what, is he Hassan Piker or is he Puker? Dude, the American people are suffering and being psychologically tortured by a fascist regime. The people are living paycheck to paycheck. If they're lucky enough to have a paycheck, they've got their health care ripped away from them from the Trump regime. They got the ultimate rug pull from this biggest con artist in history, saying he was going to make everything more affordable and electricity would be half and gas prices would be under $2. They were going to get their Doge dividend checks and there would be no more never-ending wars. This guy lied. This fascist regime lied about everything. They want to inflict more pain and suffering on the American people. But state regime media, Fox, they want to be like Hassan Piker, the puker. Dude, shut up. It's just and to anybody else, on other corporate news or anything else, just focus, listen to what the American people are actually saying and what they're experiencing and the pain and suffering that they're going through right now. Ground yourself rather in these clash of personalities on what people are experiencing right now. Here, play this clip.
This guy is, we're on cable TV. I got to watch it. He's a real lowlife. It's a funny thing, this guy Puker. He doesn't condemn communist China. In fact, he says Mao was the greatest man to ever walk the planet. Right now,
And it's interesting because when you ground yourself in the experience of what people are going through, you see how state regime media is just so utterly detached and so soulless and so hurtful. I mean, you have people like Kevin Hassett going on regime media saying they want data centers in everybody's backyard. This is the Trump regime plan, data center, like literally go to a town hall. I know MAGA Republicans don't listen to what people are saying. In addition to feeling that the wealth disparities are, and rightfully so, knowing that the disparities are so gigantic that the system is rigged against 99% of Americans. And part of this is also stop putting data centers in our freaking backyard. But Trump and Fox are pushing data centers in everybody's backyard. Here, listen.
Because it's local officials, local selectmen and mayors and so on that are negotiating these deals. And they've been negotiating the deals, pretty generously in the sense that they've been happening all over the place because the data centers are very good for towns because they create so many jobs, bring people in with high incomes that could buy houses and stuff like that. And so if you take a sleepy town that hasn't really seen much in the last 20, 30 years and put a data center there, then they're going to be a whole bunch of happy residents in that town.
Yeah. And then they're also claiming that despite the fact that GDP growth was 1.5%, they promised 4%. And even though it's 1.5%, these idiots are like, well, actually, it's 4%. It's actually 4%. Because if you, and then it's like cite a bunch of like economic words. You look at the chart, you look at supply demand curves, yields, treasuries, inputs. So we did 4%, Maria. Yeah, we did 4%. Here, play this clip.
Worries over inflation. Yesterday, the GDP was slower than expected. Last time we spoke, you told me you were expecting 4% growth in the second half of the year. We got a growth number yesterday, but it was way lower than people expected. How would you assess the macro story today?
Right. Well, I think that what we were looking at when you and I talked last was the really surging domestic demand. And so final sales within the U.S. were about 4%, actually, almost exactly the number we talked about, 3.9%. And the reason why the top line number was 1.5 was that we imported so many capital goods because we're building factories so fast that the number was different than we expected by a little bit. And the bottom line, though, is that if you look at that, so the huge surge in capital spending, which means there's downward pressure on inflation because there's upward pressure on supply, plus CPI and PCE, those two reports were about as good as you could ever hope to see if you were a Federal Reserve governor, then it means that the economy is really running on all cylinders.
And then he reveals the whole game, Kevin Hassett. The whole game is... This is the ultimate kind of con artist playbook, which we've been warning about, so pay attention to it, where they say the wealth is right around the corner. The riches, the Doge dividend checks, tariff rebate checks. You're going to get rich next. The factories are being built. $19.1 trillion are being... It's all a lie. Every time Trump says $19.1 trillion have been brought in, literally the entire number is a fake number. There's no $19.1 trillion. But then they say, okay, second quarter 2025, that's your quarter. Fourth quarter 2025, that's your quarter. First quarter 2026, that's your quarter. Okay, mid 2026, that's when things are really going to be booming. As what's his name says, Howard Lutnick, it's going to be a 6. A 6? 6. With lower interest rates, it'll be a 6. We're gonna get 6% GDP growth. Okay, it's all lie. Okay, these people lie. By the way, I don't even believe 1.5%. I think it's actually in negative territory. And if to the extent there is 1.5%, it's being propped up by this circular debt financing scheme masquerading as CapEx spending in AI, which is its whole other scam, which is a house of cards in and of itself, which is falling apart as well. But I digress there. But their plan is to say, we had it all planned out. It was so perfect. Things were going to be amazing. But then the Democrats won the midterms and they screwed it up. We were going to have the GDP growth we promised, but the Democrats won the midterms. Right? They're looking for their next Fauci, which is, by the way, why they're bringing Fauci back as one of their cast of characters to randomly attack right now, to distract from the Epstein files, which is now being distracted by a catastrophic war, which they now want to distract, I guess, by bringing back up the pandemic and how horrible Trump handled it in 2020. But anyway, their whole plan is things were great. The biggest threat to the economy, Democrats winning. The communists won, they'll say. And because that, all of our plans, we were going to be successful, and now we got screwed over. Meanwhile, does anybody actually behave more of a communist, in my opinion, than Donald Trump does? Let me know what your opinion is. But the guy controls the methods of production. He makes the promises of free this, free that, and then he lies. Trump said he'd make the greatest communist like Lenin. You just promise people things and don't deliver. You take over corporations, and you create a social welfare state for the billionaires and the oligarchs while you screw over everybody and you pal around with Delcy Rodriguez from the Maduro regime. Game, set, match. Here, play this clip.
Different. I mean, the bond market is spiking yields, and I'm just wondering if the bond market is telling us something different here. What would be your biggest economic risk if you had to look at one risk for the rest of 2026? Is it inflation? Is it labor shortages? Is it deficits? Is it the Senate not getting the president's agenda across the finish line? What would it be, Kevin, in terms of the biggest risk to continued economic growth from your standpoint?
You know, I think the biggest risk facing the U.S. economy right now is that these socialist/communist Democrats actually have a big victory and can start to have their policies be pursued by local governments and even perhaps the federal government, because they really are looking at kind of a communist takeover of America. And if markets start to think that those people are going to be successful, then there's going to be a lot of pain in markets. And so I think that's the biggest risk right now.
Well, I think this is a great point that you make, frankly. Okay.
And then finally, they then try to divide the American people. They go, did you know that Sophie Cunningham will be doing a women's rally, WNBA night? I don't know. What do you? Because she's a MAGA player. You lost me. You lost me at pro-women activists are set to rally at this weekend's WNBA games in Democratic strongholds like Portland and Minneapolis, while y'all are out there shilling for the Epstein class, okay? Okay, here, play this clip.
Saga continues. Pro-women activists are set to rally at this weekend's WNBA games in key Democratic strongholds like Portland and Minneapolis to show their support for Cunningham after the Indiana Fever player spoke out against biological males competing in women's sports. They're calling it Sophie Night.
Well, there you have it, everybody. Let me know what you think. These people are so damn pathetic. Oh, by the way, have you got your copy of WTF America, the book I wrote with my brothers?
The book I wrote with my Mark.
These people are such clowns. You have to just laugh in their faces what losers they are. So anyway, WTF America is the book. WTF America. Pre-order it right now. The publisher tells us it's very important that we do the pre-orders. So if you were thinking, is it important that I pre-order or wait till it comes out in October? Pre-order it. Pre-order it. It's important because it helps with the promotion. It helps know where we're going to travel to. So if you can put it in the comments that you pre-ordered it and how many you pre-ordered. All right, that's my spiel. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7. It's a really good book. I mean, I've really put so much time into this thing, and I know you'll really love it. I really do. And it's so inspired by you. I think we'll have a link in the description as well. Hit subscribe. We'll get to 7 million. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Before you go, our book, WTF America, is available for pre-order now. It's the story of how we got here and how we fight our way back. To pre-order, scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Let's do this.